all of you to our last forum that will be hosted by Delta Sigma Theta Sorority prior to election on October 14th. Our forum today will feature candidates seeking the positions of police jurors for various districts and also state representative. I'd like to thank the candidates and welcome you. Thank you for participating. Welcome again. First off, Delta Sigma Theta does not endorse any candidates. This forum is for informational purposes only. Again, thank you all for coming. Welcome. Enjoy the forum, and I'll now turn it over to my Social Action Chair, Giselle Hawkins.
So we're going to welcome up our chapter chaplain, Vala, to be able to give a prayer before we get started. Thank you.
Let us go to the Lord in prayer. Dear God, we come on this evening thanking you for our many blessings. Lord, we thank you for these candidates. We thank you that they were able to come out to share with us. At this time, we just ask that you will open our minds, our hearts, and give us a clear vision of each platform for each candidate. And Lord, we know that knowledge is power. And we have come to learn to just discern which candidates that we should vote for when we go into that voting booth. And Lord, we know that many are qualified, and we just ask that you come into this place and have your way with each and every one of us. Help us to just go through the forum with kindness, to go through just wanting and yearning to learn more. We're so grateful to the Mount Calvary family here, Reverend Garner, that has extended us a welcome, a place that we can come to hear our candidates. And we know that they are tired because they have been through so many forums. So we just ask that you would lift them up at this time and give them the ability to address whichever question that comes their way. This is our prayer. Amen.
So I want to introduce at this point time our Mistress of Ceremony is Miss Nakia Collins. She will give instructions. Our timekeepers are Amanda Johnson and Dora Kennison Carter. I want to say that this again is our fourth in a series of four forums, and this Lake Charles Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta. I want to tell you a little bit about us. We are an organization of educated women, over 300,000 strong, and we in Lake Charles Alumni Chapter have been in existence since 1955. Today, we bring you the candidates for police jury, these districts representing District 3, District 4, District 8, and District 9. We thank you and we welcome you. Note that early voting begins September 30th through October 7th. And we ask that you please exercise your vote or choice to vote early. And also, election day is October 14th. Thank you. Oh, and I meant in District 2 will be later.
Evening. Good evening.
Our technology and the challenges that we seem to face with new inventions, if you will. My name is Nakia Collins Bushnell. I'll be your moderator for the evening. We'll go through District 2, District 3, District 8, and District 9. In our first set of questions, each individual will have a chance to give a 2-minute introduction. You'll hold to that 2 minutes. We have timekeepers, one here on this row. If you would raise your hand, Mrs. Kennison. We have a second timekeeper, Mrs. Amanda Johnson, if you would raise your hand. We'll acknowledge the cards with all due respect and the time limits that are given. After your 2-minute introduction, we'll start into our line of questioning. You'll have a 1-minute response with a 30-second rebuttal. After all of the questions have been completed, we will allow you to do a 2-minute close, and we will still use the timekeepers with that as well. Is everyone in agreement, and does everyone understand? Perfect. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is a 501c7 nonpartisan organization and does not endorse candidates. The forum is for educational purposes only. Although you all are representing different districts tonight, we're going to ask questions straight across the panel. We're going to start here on the end of the table with District 2 with Mr. Mike Smith. If you would also give your election or ballot number, that would be helpful for the general public to know that you are Mike Smith and what your number is.
Test. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mike Smith, the current police juror for District 2. I'm number 64 on the ballot. I have my lovely wife, Tricia, here of 34 years, and my youngest son, Xavier. We all three are members of Mount Calvary Baptist Church, and we're glad to be here. And I want to thank the Deltas for actually putting this on because it's actually needed for the community. During my first term, like I said, I was elected as my first term, and we went through a lot. And I want to continue my terms because I have a lot left to do. We went through a lot with the actual hurricanes, the ice storm, and all other items. But one thing I want to do is continue to grow District 2, to make sure that we do get the respect and the actual allocations that's out there. There is a lot of money that's coming to the community and coming to the parish, and the money is here. We went through times we didn't have any money coming through this, but now we have money here. Like on tomorrow, there's going to be an actual public meeting to address the $27 million that's here to be used in the actual district. Not just my district, but actual minority districts throughout the parish. So I want to encourage everybody to come out tomorrow and make sure it's going to be at the Allen P. August Center starting at 6. One thing I want to do, I want to make sure that I continue my work to show up and to make sure I do put out fires, because dealing with people, that's what I do. I'm a public servant. I want to be a people person, and I want to make sure that things get accomplished in my district. I do like to always make sure things are transparent so people know about things. I'm an open book. You call me anytime. I can tell you what's going on. You can follow me on social media, follow me in the paper, KPLC, whatever you want to follow me on, you can. Because I want to make sure that my constituents know exactly what's going on in the whole parish so they can find the resources and make sure they can live an actual good life in District 2. Because I want to make sure District 2 does thrive. Thank y'all, and God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. We'll now move to Mr. Emile Levon Fontenot.
Test. Good evening, everyone. Yes, my name is Emile Levon Fontenot, and I am number 63 on the ballot. First off, as a member of Kappa Alpha Psi and the Divine Nine, I would definitely like to extend a lot of appreciation to Delta Sigma Theta and actually putting this on. This means a lot, and for the term that you guys have been doing it, the persistence means everything, so we definitely appreciate that. Police Jury District 2, let's just say the world in general has a lot to grow. We have a long way to go. And even talking about District 2, you look around and you just see so many areas where we can do better. But let me give you just a little bit of background on myself. Born originally in Lafayette, Louisiana, grew up for about 10 years in Opelousas. When I was 10 or 11, I moved to California to meet my mom, stayed there for 5 years, and then came to Lake Charles, Louisiana. Met my dad and just fell in love with what it is. It's like a mixture of country and city all in one. And a country boy like me, I like that combination. And so met my wife, who was a longtime resident, who lived actually right across the street from Washington Marion, the school I graduated from, and we ended up buying a house right around the corner. So I know I'm not going anywhere, and I know I see a lot of changes that need to be done. And for the sake of my 12, 9, 3, and 1-year-old babies, I want to make sure that we cultivate this atmosphere that we call the world as much as possible, because what we don't do, the world is ready to show them. So if we don't show them the right ways or give them the tools and the atmosphere they need to succeed, it won't happen. So that's where my heart is. That's where my passion and my pride is. And all I'm asking for you is that early voting from September 30th through October 7th and on October 14th. I need your vote, number 63, Emile Levon Fontenot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fontenot. We'll now move to Mrs. Chantel Carter Willis.
Good evening, everyone. It's so wonderful to be here. Of course, I'm very happy that Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated and Mount Calvary has put this on. I'm Chantel Carter Willis. I am number 62 on the ballot. I am a nurse, been a nurse for over 20 years. I've also been a director of nursing for over 10 now. And I have a passion for caring for people. It's always something that I love to do. That's always something that I've been drawn to, caring for people. That's what I've been doing in this community for the past 20 years. That's what I did when we had hurricanes hit. I didn't leave. I was here making sure people were taken care of. That's what I want to take to our community. So as a director of nursing, we've had to do a lot of things with healthcare, making sure that we had the diversity in nursing, that we had the people to take care of our community, and be a part of a lot of different transitions. That's what I can take into this position as a leader, a servant leader. That's what I want to be. That's what I want to be for you. I want to be a voice. I want to make sure that our voice is heard in this community and that we continue to move forward. That's my goal. Chantel Carter Willis, number 62 on the ballot.
Thank you to the District 2 candidates. We'll now move to District 4 with Mr. Mac Delafosse.
Thank you. Thank you, Delta Sigma Theta, for giving us a platform. Excuse me. Too much is given, much is required. And that's something I live by. I come before you today as a humble servant, asking that you elect me, Mac Delafosse, District 4. So, the Cactus Parish Police Jury, they collect over $18 million in property taxes from the residents of the city of Lake Charles. That's 3 taxes that they collect. And District 4 neighborhoods are not seeing any of those return on those investments. District 4 neighborhoods have been neglected and ignored. This is a travesty that we can't let continue to happen. So the change must happen now. I have a proven record of securing millions of dollars while being on the school board for District 7. I have a proven record of using my voice to lead efforts that generate positive change. That is what I'm willing to bring to District 4 if seated. District 4, we're at a crossroads. The decision that this election brings will impact future generations in ways like none before. I'm asking that you look at your neighborhoods, District 4. Ask yourself, has my neighborhood gotten any better? If you ask me, I'll tell you it hasn't. A resounding no. I would ask you also listen tonight to fact check the things that you're going to hear tonight. You need to know for yourself what's going on and what the issues are. Therefore, I'm asking you to choose results, choose experience, choose growth, choose action, choose leadership. Choose me, Mac Delafosse, number 67 on your ballot.
Thank you, Mr. Delafosse. We'll actually go to District 8 with Mr. Scott Washington.
Am I on? Hi, how are you this evening? My name is Scott Washington. I'm running for the police jury seat that Guy Brame has held for 20 years. He's stepping down. Basically, that's the west side of town. I've been in business here in Lake Charles for 45 years. And I look around and so many people they're so cynical about government. And I'm guilty of that too. And part of the reason that I'm running is win or lose, when I do meet my maker, I'm be able to look him in the eye and say, I tried. Now, a little bit about me. I have been an environmental contractor for 38 years. Our company was Hydrovac. You may have heard of us, you may not have, but we cleaned up the mess. Any kind of mess that was made, that was our job, to go clean it up. I'm running because at this point in my life, I have the time to do a good job. I also have a unique background relative to everyone else on the police jury in that I am a regulatory expert. I know what the environmental rules and regulations are, and the parish has got adjudicated property in a number of places around the parish that's been sitting for years and years and years. In the course of our work, we did quite a bit of Brownsfield work, and those are projects that are available to the parish that would help bring some of these blighted properties back into use. I think my time is out, so I'm going to stop.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. We are also going to grab some water for each candidate, as well as for myself and the tech team that's working. We are going to go ahead and go to District 9 with Felicia Frank.
Testing. Seems like every time I get a mic, it's messing up. So I wouldn't expect anything, but I want to thank the Deltas for putting this on and welcoming the candidates here today. Also Mount Calvary, the house that we're standing in, and the presence that was welcome in. So my name's Felicia Frank. I'm born and raised in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Most of you know my father, Ken Shake Snyder, is a servant to the community for many years, and my great uncle Rufus Mayfield, who was a pioneer as well in the business sector in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Well, I'm from that legacy, the legacy of serving the people. One of the things I want to say is that I believe this to be one of the most important terms that we can elect in Lake Charles, Louisiana, in Calcasieu Parish. The reason is because of the billion of resources and dollars that is going to be flooded into our community. And if we do not have the right people sitting in those seats, then we may lose out on the opportunity to build strong and repair our infrastructure. Our schools, our roads, our infrastructure, our drainage, our sewage, we can go on with the list of things. Our schools are all suffering. And if you're like me, you're tired of being last on every statistic that we read in the newspapers. Well, we have to make that decision. We have to send our best to represent us in those seats. I'm asking you, I'm number 74, Felicia Frank, and I'm asking you to vote for me. It's a clear choice that we have to make right now.
Thank you, Ms. Frank. We'll now move to Mr. Anthony Barty.
Good evening. My name's Anthony Barty. I'm originally from Cameron, Louisiana. And I want to thank the Deltas for putting this on. And just like Mr. Fontenot said, he's a member of the Divine Nine, so am I. I just happen to be a member of the first Black Greek letter organization, Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. But anyway, again, my name's Anthony Barty. I'm originally from Cameron, Louisiana. I graduated from McNeese State University. Upon graduating from McNeese, I went to work for Calcasieu Marine National Bank. I was definitely the first Black branch manager in this area. Stayed there for approximately 20 years, and that's where I got my desire to be a servant. Banking back then was all about service, and so I was able to get, that was instilled in me. I went to work after that for Miss Faye Brown Blackwell to run her radio station, and that's been a very rewarding opportunity for me to continue to working with the people of Lake Charles, serving them. And then I retired and decided to seek public office, which has been a different task, but it's been a very rewarding one to go about helping people and help them make their lives better. And that's what I believe in as far as being a public servant, being a representative of representing District 9, which is one of the fastest growing districts in Calcasieu Parish. And, you know, I've always been the type of person, I'd say I had two functions, to take credit and assess blame. So then I'm going to take credit for the growth of District 9. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barty, and to each of the candidates who've given great statements about themselves and their personal goals and what their expectations are for outcomes. As mentioned a bit earlier, prior to getting into the questioning, we'll go over the rules one more time. You will have an opportunity after your question is asked to respond for 60 seconds. If you have a rebuttal to any candidate, there's a 30-second limit. The timekeepers will hold up their time card. At the end of our line of questioning, you'll have an opportunity to give a 2-minute closing statement. Is everyone clear? Perfect. We'll go ahead and get started. We're going to start with District 2. Each candidate will have the same question and a different set of questions throughout each district. So we'll start with District 2. We'll start with Mr. Emile Levon Fontenot. Calcasieu Parish is prone to hurricanes and other natural disasters. How do you plan to improve the parish's infrastructure and disaster preparedness efforts to ensure the security of residents during emergencies?
Test. Are we standing up on all these answers, or are we sitting down, or?
It depends on what you feel is your position.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
At any point anyone needs me to repeat a question, I will. Calcasieu Parish is prone to hurricanes and other natural disasters. How do you plan to improve the parish's infrastructure and disaster preparedness efforts to ensure the the safety of residents during emergencies?
Oh, let's see. Let me just start with the baseline. It's a lot of knowledge that goes into the preparation for emergencies like this. And if we don't do the preparation prior to an emergency happening, then we'll be in a bind and trying to play catch up if it does happen. And simple things like the litter and keeping these ditches cut and properly draining so that we don't have the buildup if we do get an abundance of rain or abundance of storm. But it's also about creating relationships too, because we need to become more of one, just like we've done in the past when Laura hit us in 2020. We stuck together. We were able to come no matter what the color was, no matter what the gap was. We came together and we were able to help each other move forward. And I think we need to dive a little bit more into that and also gain more of the knowledge of how the infrastructure plays such an important role when we're talking about watershed and drainage and how we're getting that water to the Gulf. So knowledge is definitely key. Relationships is definitely key. And coming together as one is always going to be the answer to most questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fontenot. And we do have a lot of questions, so if you choose not to stand for each one, I believe that's absolutely okay. We will go to Mrs. Chantel Carter Willis for the same question, and I can repeat it.
Testing, okay. So I think it's imperative, actually, that we work together to prepare for any national disaster. Actually, this is one of the things that I've been able to really work in healthcare. Working with Louisiana Emergency Preparedness Response Network team, when we had Laura, I was one of the lead nursing directors to make sure we knew how to prepare and get ready for it. Now, we realized in that we weren't quite prepared because we had to evacuate patients. So you learn from that. For Delta, we were ready. We were ready to make sure we had water, that we didn't have to evacuate patients at the last minute. I was actually one of the ones that was here until that last patient left, because that's what I do. I make sure that our patients and our community are taken care of, and I get in there and roll up my sleeves if I have to. So preparing and working with LEARN is something I've had experience in, and I think I can work with the community to make sure we have our community prepared to evacuate if needed.
There is a little bit of a delay when you hit the on button on the mic. Even I'm having a difficult time with it, so just pause for a moment before you speak. We'll go to Mr. Mike Smith.
Okay. One thing we want to do is actually build back better. You know, basically the actual codes are now strengthened to withstand 140-mile-an-hour winds. So you want to build hurricane-resistant homes because you never know when those hurricanes will come. Also with the parish, we do have contracts with Crowder Golf and also other amenities, so we can have things prepared. They'll come back first day after the hurricane to start the cleanup. So those contracts are already in place to be prepared for this. Also, you want to make sure you have shelters already laid out. The Burton Coliseum is always there. The Civic Center is always there. But one thing what Laura taught me and taught everybody else, and like in my district, District 2, people coming from the north, there's no shelter. So people coming out of Gillis, Moss Bluff, and other areas does not have anywhere to go. So that's something we want to work on now by making an actual shelter. Like last time we used the actual Southwest Louisiana Health Center over there on Appaloosa Street. So one thing I want to work on is trying to get an actual building built, a multi-purpose building that can actually handle things during the day and then also be a shelter during the hurricane.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. We'll now move to District 4 with Mr. Mac Delafosse. What strategies do you propose to promote economic development and job creation in Calcasieu Parish, particularly in the wake of recent challenges such as hurricanes and economic downturns?
Okay, thank you. Well, I was ready for that other question because that's my expertise as a disaster claims adjuster. But in terms of economic development, the parish spends 2.7% of its budget in economic development currently. And frankly, that's not enough for what we need in terms of the partnerships that need to take place with the city of Lake Charles and other particular entities around the parish. Because we're a parish government, we still have a lot of things that we do in the city. And those partnerships that we talk about for economic development would be partnering with different businesses, different entities to allow them to have different classes for businesses that want to come to Lake Charles. We need to make sure that we are doing things to attract other businesses to come to Lake Charles. That means we need to get out of just Lake Charles, make sure we have someone on staff that's experienced in economic development. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delafosse. We'll go to District 8, Mr. Scott Washington, with the same question.
We live in the heart of the oil and gas country. We have an incredible industrial infrastructure here that's already here in place. But we have a president of the United States that has said openly that he's going to eliminate the fossil fuel business. One of the things that I know a lot about, and one of the things that I will do, should I be elected, is speak to those purveyors of hysteria that just get out there and talk off the top of the head and don't know what they're talking about. I happen to think the industries in this area do a pretty good job, and they don't get enough credit for the efforts that they put out every day when it comes to environmental issues. I spent 38 years working in that business, and I know how much money they spend and how seriously they take matters of the environment.
Thank you, Mr. Washington. We'll now proceed to District 9 with Ms. Felicia Frank. Flooding is a recurring issue in the parish. How will you address flood mitigation and drainage infrastructure to protect homes and businesses?
One of the most important things that we have to think about, and I know District 9 is one of the fastest growing districts. When we say that, we see a lot of the infrastructure monies poured into the new developments, but some of the foundational developments like the village, the terrace was, until redistricting, a part of District 9, and we see the neglect that was done as reference to the weatherization of those homes and also the drainage issues. We've had multiple years where we could have addressed those, but we're still looking for ways to aggressive drainage plans. The police jury is a legislative body as well as administrative body, and if we're not bringing legislation to that body to legislate on and come with infrastructure plans and developments and getting with people engineers who know that, then we're not doing our job. So one of the most important things is cultivating those relationships, connecting resources with the engineers that can do that job, and that's what I would plan on doing.
Thank you, Mrs. Frank. We'll now go to Mr. Anthony Barty with the same question. Absolutely. Flooding is a recurring issue in the parish. How will you address flood mitigation and drainage infrastructure to protect homes and businesses?
Okay, thank you. Just like you say, it is a recurring problem, and we're never probably going to fix it. But we have the things in place as far as if we enforce the ordinances, city and parish, that are in place as far as when new construction takes place, there should be a mitigation study that's done on that new construction that shows what effect it has on the current residents and what effect it will have from that day forth. Those studies supposed to be done. Hopefully I do know that as far as the parish is concerned, we do have runoff plans that have to be met, and those guidelines have to be done. So the things are in place. Also, we have to understand the effect Cameron Parish has on our flooding. So we have to deal with the people in Cameron Parish because our water tends to flow downhill. So Cameron has a definite effect on our flooding situation here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barty. We'll now go back to District 8 with Mr. Scott Washington. The panel will get the same question. How will you promote transparency and accountability in the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury, ensuring that decisions and actions are made in the best interest of the communities?
Well, government ought to be open to the people all of the time, and there shouldn't be any backroom, smoke-filled rooms that have to be in place anymore. My observation as a citizen here in Calcasieu Parish since 1977 is that we've been pretty fortunate to have good government. We haven't had the scoundrels. This young man talked about being from Opelousas. I grew up in Opelousas, the home of Cat Doucette. Here y'all had Ham Reed. Those guys are gone, and for the most part, we've had very good government at the federal level at the local level, and we don't have a bunch of scoundrels. And the best way to keep people happy in a community is just put it out there and tell them what the hard, cold truth is, and then deal with it.
Thank you. We'll move to Mr. Anthony Bartee with the same question. How will you promote transparency and accountability in the Calcasieu Parish Police Jury, ensuring that decisions and actions are made in the best interest of the communities?
Well, there's not a whole lot to be done at this point as far as transparency is concerned, because all of our public meetings are broadcast, so every person has the opportunity to sit there and watch, and if they don't watch it live, they can go back and just go to our website and see exactly what we do and how we and what decisions are being made. As far as accuracy, the one thing a lot of people think about when it comes to accuracy of records has to deal with the accounting. Our accounting department is second to none. The audits that are actually done every year on the accounting is first rate, and it's always above board, and it's always completely accurate. Thank you.
Ms. Felicia Frank.
Okay, there's the delay, sorry. One of the things that, there's two things, is that it concerns me about the 8-minute meetings, the 10-minute meetings, the less than, when you have a full agenda, and the meetings are very short, which leads me to assume or make an assumption that there is some discussion that the people aren't privy to. So when it comes to transparency and integrity, we should make sure that we're discussing and having votes in front of the people so that they can be a part of it, to make sure that we are being transparent. Another thing that I want to implement is District 1 through 15 should have an accounting of what monies is spent in each district to make sure that there is equitable spending, that the spending is equal among those districts. That's something that I see a lack of, and that's something that I plan to legislate, get pushed, and put that rule in effect so that the people will know where the funds are being spent.
Ms. Frank, we'll now move to Mr. Mac Delafosse.
So I've served on numerous boards, and I can tell you transparency and accountability was not always existent. We have to make sure that we elect individuals that follow the code of ethics. And when we talk about transparency, I looked at the budget for the police jury, 478 pages long. There's no way that an average citizen can understand exactly where things are. So I would want to make sure that we have meetings, specifically where we go out into the community. And I want the citizens to be able to hold me accountable, and also want them to be able to hold our board accountable. Because if you get the citizens on your side, things will happen. And I can tell you I've always been very transparent and very open as an elected official, and I plan to continue to be transparent and accountable. And so the citizens is who's going to be in charge of that. And I agree with Mr. Bartee. The meetings are publicized and are available for the citizens to hold us accountable.
Ms. Chantel Carter-Willis.
It is absolutely important for any government official to be transparent and accountable. I think that's some of the things that we're lacking. As Mr. Mack said, I would like to see that we have something that the citizens can quickly review to know where money is spent, what is going on within, what decisions that are being made, and that's part of holding your elected representative accountable to the decisions that they're making. The decision is for the community. So I would love to have town council meetings, make sure there's multiple ways to communicate to the district, and that they can communicate back to me that I'm making the appropriate decisions that represent the district. And then, of course, making sure that we continue to publicize all of the meetings, but everything should be publicized for all of the community to be able to see.
Emile Levon Fontenot.
All right, I only have a minute, right? Okay.
As soon as you speak, it starts.
So many topics to talk about when you talk about the transparency, but at the end of the day, I like to always go back to the foundation, because the foundation is the reason why we have a lot of the issues that we have today. And honestly, as constituents and as citizens, we don't have faith in the leaders that we've elected. Let's just be real, because if we have faith, we'll be there to support. We'll be showing up. We'll be less to accuse of not doing and more educated on what must be done. But I understand it, because you haven't been given that opportunity to show it. And so day one, the biggest goal is to develop faith, develop some courage in order to bridge that gap, because it seems like nothing gets done when we elect the leader we think is right. And so why am I going to keep going battle fights that we ain't winning or they're not fighting for? And so unfortunately, it's going to take a little leadership from the person elected to get that ball rolling, so then the courage of the people can start growing a little bit more. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fontenot. Mr. Mike Smith.
When the actual budget is adopted, public meetings are held. They are advertised for the public to attend. They are shown on television. They are put in the paper. That's legal. They have to be like that. But most times we don't really go to those meetings, because I found over my time, if it don't affect my front door, I really don't show up. But I do encourage my constituents to come out to these meetings. I do publicize it and make sure they do come or want to come. But like I say, we cannot force everybody to be there. So one thing about being transparent, you want to also include everybody in the decision. When that budget is adopted, people can come to me and ask for certain things for a certain district or request certain things. And I will make sure that those things get done. But we have to get involved. It's not just me, it's everybody. Because like I say, I cannot be as strong as my other people in my district. So that's what I'm saying. We have to get more involved in the actual government process in order for this to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. We'll now go back to Mr. Mac Delafosse. What initiatives will you champion to support and promote local businesses and small enterprises throughout the parish?
Can you repeat that, please?
What initiatives will you champion to support and promote local businesses and small enterprises throughout the parish?
What initiatives? So to champion small businesses, we have to make sure that we provide a lot of opportunities for both the city government and parish government, where we can go in and have a lot of business classes so they're educated on how a business should be run. Most businesses fail because they don't understand all the intricacies surrounding how a business should operate. We have a lot of home-based businesses. We need to make sure that we encourage them to come out and actually open up a storefront. So from the parish perspective, I think a lot of it is educational, a lot of it is funding, and a lot of it has to do with giving them a mentor so they can have someone to identify with, so they will understand how business works. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Delafosse. We'll give the same question to Mr. Scott Washington. What initiatives will you champion to support and promote local businesses and small enterprises throughout the parish?
Doing away with stupid regulations. I will be a firewall against stupid. Now, regulations are necessary, but occasionally somebody needs to say no to the onerous, excessive regulation that all of the government, the federal government, the state government, the parish government, and the city government want their finger in every business. And the best thing you could do would be to just leave those folks alone and let them go do their job. So if I champion anything, it's going to be to champion a lack of stupidity that seems to come into everything. Doesn't matter. I've been an entrepreneur. I've started numerous businesses. I've bought and sold companies. And every time,
Thank you,
some
Mr.
bureaucrat
Washington.
pops
This
up.
next question will be for District 9 and for District 2. How do you plan, and I'll read the question since it's both districts, and then I'll call on the individual. How do you plan to support and improve education and youth programs in the parish to ensure a brighter future for young residents? We'll start with Mr. Anthony Barty.
Well, you know, the one thing about education is it's an ongoing thing. I know the parish makes great investments in education throughout the parish. One of those investments is we putting in $1.5 million into the Port Wonder facility that's being built on the lakefront, which is going to provide a great venue for our youth to learn a lot there, to experience a whole lot. So that's one area that we can say that the parish is getting involved in as far as, you know, using resources. But also we have our Human Services Department that does quite a bit and offer various resources throughout the parish. But on a different note, I think what we can do, and initiatives that I would like to see us do more of, is to make sure we can promote minority businesses to take advantage of some of the contracts that we let out.
Thank you, Mr. Barty. Ms. Felicia Frank, same question. Absolutely. How do you plan to support and improve education and youth programs in the parish to ensure a brighter future for young residents?
Yes, one of the line items or budget items in the police bureau budget is youth programs. So collaborating, creating real relationships, and collaborating on projects. The new African American Chamber of Commerce that's going to be in North Lake Charles, I think is a great opportunity for the police bureau to champion programs for our youth, to give them entrepreneurship spirit. And I would love to champion a program with the police bureau to do that in reference to education. After school programs, investing in our band, multiple programs with our schools. I think there is multiple ways that the police bureau can get involved in our schools, especially supporting Calcasieu Parish School Board in reference to the funding that comes in. But I think entrepreneurship, we should have more trade support, reaching out to the oil and gas industry to have them invest in our infrastructure. That's a part of the police bureau when it comes to networking and creating projects for our youth.
Thank you, Ms. Frank. We'll now go to Mrs. Chantel Carter Willis with the same question.
Partner with other government officials like the school board, the city council, to make sure that we have resources across the city, not just in our district. I think education is important for everyone, but also having those relationships with our libraries within the district so that we can have resources. Libraries are a great place to have resources for our kids and for the families. There's a lot of things that you can do there. So I would love to partner with all of those resources and other businesses within the district that can bring other resources and make sure that our education is where it needs to be.
Thank you. We'll now move to Mr. Emile Levon Fontenot.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Absolutely. How do you plan to support and improve education and youth programs in the parish to ensure a brighter future for young residents?
I've always said this from the beginning. One of the biggest issues that we have when you're talking about government is that all of these entities operate a little bit too separate for me. The reason why these government entities were created was to break things down, but still have it work in conjunction with each other. And even when you look at the comprehensive report from the Human Services Department, which is an amazing department, they had one little ding They didn't do enough youth activities. That was the only thing that they found. It wasn't by much, but it's enough. And so we have to do more with bridging that gap, like it was said before, between the officials, but we also have to start reaching the kids. We do everything at the schools and construction. When have we ever asked the kids, what's going to make this environment a little bit better for you to learn? Unfortunately, times have changed. We didn't get that opportunity back in the day because they didn't care. They had a belt that was going to make us accept whatever they had. But today, times are a little bit more sensitive, and we have to bring those kids into a lot of those decision making so that they can understand it when it's time for them to grow up and make those same decisions.
Thank you, Mr. Fontenot. Mr. Mike Smith will end this question.
Okay. I'm also part of the actual Human Services Board. We also give money to other agencies like Girly Girls and also Teen Connection through the city. Those items are given to other nonprofits to actually do the work. So we have to allocate the actual funds to make sure, and we also hold them accountable also too, because any type of money that is spent from the parish to these organizations to do the work has to be accounted for. Myself personally, what I do, I partner with Conbury Fondale. I'm like an actual patrol. I go there and talk to the students. I mentor. I go to different schools like elementary, like Ralph Wilson. They actually had Man Up Mondays. I participate in that. So I do a lot. We do teen summits to make sure that the teens do learn a lot from other individuals within the community. So those are the things that I do work on, because I know, actually, I can say the youth are definitely an important asset to us in the future. Thank you.
Mr. Smith, and thank you to each one of you who have answered the questions that we have given you on this afternoon or this evening. We'll now go into our closing statements, and we're going to start with Mr. Scott Washington, and you'll have a 2-minute statement to close.
Most of my friends have asked me, Scott, why are you doing this? You don't need to do this. But I feel like that if people like me that have been in business and that have dealt with people both on the bureaucratic side and on the customer side don't start stepping up and becoming involved in local government, then all this craziness that's going on around the rest of the country, where you have lawlessness and zero consequences, we're going to look up here and it's going to be in this community in the blink of an eye. And as a civil society, we cannot tolerate lawlessness. My general feeling is that the broadness of my background will allow me to serve the community well. And I hear a lot of people, and most of the people here represent Lake Charles. This is Calcasieu Parish. If I get elected, I'm going to represent everybody in Calcasieu Parish, the people in Carlos and DeQuincy, Iowa. I mean, there's a whole parish to be considered here, and both of the ladies that I'm running against are very Lake Charles proud. Honestly, I don't understand why there is a big divide between when you cross the Calcasieu River Bridge. There's basically a whole nother world over there in Sulphur and Westlake. And the two don't seem to want to have much to do with one another. I will represent everybody in the parish in whatever capacity I can do that. And that might mean a phone call to help them with a bureaucratic problem, and it might mean going to Baton Rouge. It's like this bridge they fixed.
Thank you, Mr. Scott Washington.
Thank you.
We'll have Mr. Anthony Barty next.
Again, I was elected 4 years ago to represent the people of District 9. I think I stood right in this very church 4 years ago and asked, if you put me in there, I think I'll make you proud, and I hope I've done that. What I will say is we are still in recovery mode. We've accomplished a lot, but we still have a lot to do. And I ask that you allow me to continue the work that we've started 4 years ago. There are some things on the horizon for this area that are going to be extremely important to us. We saw the effects of the LNG industry and how that has worked for our area. Well, the next huge industry that's definitely looking at us right now is carbon capture and storage. That's a huge, huge project. And we're going to have to, as a parish, decide how we're going to welcome it, how much we're going to allow in our parish, and what effects, if any, that's going to have on our environment. So there's some very important issues that's going to take place from moving forward. And I like to be that police juror that's working with those industries to make those industries thrive, but also continue to our area to thrive. Wind energy is another factor that's getting ready to invade this area. You know, we've already heard about the offshore leases that they're getting out. So that's real close. That's right there offshore out of Cameron. That's going to affect us. And we're going to have to take a serious look and be prepared for that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barty. We'll go to Ms. Felicia Frank.
Yes, thank you again to the administrators of this forum, the Deltas, and thank you to Mount Calvary. I wanted to mention Project Cypress, which is the carbon capture that's coming to Calcasieu Parish, has had several meetings, and I want to know if you all knew about them. Calcasieu Parish Police Bureau has the information on when those meetings will be, and you as citizens need to be a part of that. $1.2 billion is bringing 5,000 jobs possibly. That's the information you're going to get with me as your police juror representing District 9 for Calcasieu Parish. Communication, community, infrastructure, and enhancement. That's what it is. Connecting resources, collaborating on projects. Those are all things. The police jury is not just an administrative body, it is a legislative body. And for some reason, we all are not legislating with the police jury. I'm explaining to you, this is gonna be, like Mr. Barty said, one of the most important terms. And it is important that we have active, hardworking people in our community that we don't just see at election time, that we see all the time. And I'm asking to be that representative. I'm Felicia Frank. I think it's a clear choice. I think I'm the clear choice. As a matter of fact, I know I'm the clear choice right now in District 9, number 74, Felicia Frank.
Thank you, Mrs. Frank. We'll now move to Mr. Mac Delafosse.
Thank you. There is so much untapped potential in District 4. We can no longer be satisfied with just the status quo. It is not effective for an elected official to just simply vote yes or no before issues that come before them. Serving on a board like the police jury requires someone to be vocal, engaged, aware, and convincing. I am prepared to be these things for the District 4. I have demonstrated that I am not afraid to speak up for my constituents and their needs. Should I be fortunate to receive your vote, I can assure you that I will not vote for a $427 million budget that doesn't include more equitable projects for District 4 neighborhoods. I will not stand by and watch our laterals continue to be neglected, flooding our neighborhoods and displacing our residents like in the Terrace and Gilpey Drive. I will not stand by and accept meager investments in our parks like at Mallard over on Opelousas Street, when you have East Prairie Lake Park that's gotten millions. You have Riverside out in Moss Bluff. You have River Bluff and Westlake. We can't take meager coins. I will not put a massive trailer park next to residents who begged and pleaded for you not to put a trailer park near their homes. I will not minimize the importance of removing the Confederate statue by simply saying, put me down for a yes vote. Where's the advocacy in that? And as I close, I want to leave you with a reminder that District 4 needs dollars, not distractions. I am prepared on day one based on the experience that I have on various boards where I've served as president and led numerous budget meetings to step in day one and be an advocate and bring home funds to District 4. I ask for your support. Number 67, Mac Delafosse.
Thank you, Mr. Delafosse. Mrs. Chantel Carter Willis.
We continue to see the same thing, but we can't move forward unless you have action. There's been a lot of comments about what has been done, but what I see is the same. What we need is a voice that's going to stand the position, a voice that's going to move forward, a voice that's going to have action, a voice that you will be able to see some change. We want to continue to grow our district, our city, and the whole city, not part of the city. That's what we need. We want to be able to move forward, want to be proud of where we are, and continue to make change. But we got to see something. We got to have some action. That's what I'm prepared to do. That's what I've done in my experience in the past, and that's what I can do for this community. That's what I want to do. Be your voice. I can do that. I'm Chantel Carter Willis, number 62 on the ballot.
Thank you, Ms. Willis. We'll now go to Mr. Emile Levon Fontenot.
Again, I am Emile Levon Fontenot. I am number 63 on the ballot. And let me just give you my plan. My plan is to actually focus on where the things we're currently missing. And what we're currently missing is we're missing a foundation, because the parish is the foundation. You cannot build a city without a parish, or in other states, you cannot build a city without a county. So we are the bottom line. We are the basis, the concrete of a house, right? If we don't invest in that and get those things right, then it truly doesn't matter what we add to it, because eventually it'll crumble because it doesn't have the solid foundation, okay? We need to invest in a whole lot of relationships, and we talked about this last night at the other debate. Relationships are so important, and on that 15-man jury, you have no choice but to have relationships, because with relationships, people will understand what you're bringing to the table, but you also have to have knowledge behind that, because they're going to question everything that you propose. And so you have to be willing to answer every concern that they may bring in order for them to support whatever cause you have to not only just make the city inside of the district good, but to make the whole district too good, make it great, make it so positive and so good that we can actually build on it. Because right now, we don't have what it takes to build on it. It's not attractive to businesses. It's not attractive to investors. Back in the day, you know, we always compare, and I got a couple of seconds. Back in the day, people built their own homes with their friends and their neighbors. Today, we don't have that luxury because we don't know how to use our hands. So we're forced to allow somebody to build our homes, which means it costs more money. But minimum wage is still only $7.25 an hour. So you tell me if any of that adds up to us having a better community. Number 63, Emile Fontenot. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fontenot. We'll close with Mr. Mike Smith.
I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Really enjoyed it. He did speak about the minimum wage, but one thing about the actual parish, we increased our salaries for the actual parish 25%, because we want to attract and keep our people. And that's one thing we have to look at. My goal is really basically to work at what I'm doing now. We got $27 million coming in for our actual area. Tomorrow night is the meeting. Please come out. We want to make sure that that money is spent. People know about it, so people cannot hide it. So we are really transparent toward this money. We got another $10 million coming in for the opioid settlement. We want to make sure that money stays and goes to the areas that it needs. Follow the money, make sure it goes to the area, and that's what I do. I ask a lot of questions. They get tired of asking questions. So I'm going to be the one to actually ask the questions to make sure that my district gets what they need. I come out every morning. I make sure that my constituents know what is going on in District 2 and the parish-wide, to make sure that they are aware of grants, nonprofit opportunities, anything. That's one thing they can say about me. I'm transparent. I want to make sure that everybody has a chance in order to grow. Businesses can come to our area. They are centers. Sometimes they don't know about it. I am a very stickler on making sure we do have minority representation or participation with all kind of bids. I talked to a lot of people, make sure they do come out and bid for these jobs, but they also have to have everything from the actual insurance, workers' comp, but I make sure they have that. Now, they choose to bid or not, but I make sure that they know what they have to have. So I'm Mike Smith, number 64 on the ballot. I want to continue this journey because I only been in office one term. And I want to keep doing because the money is here now. Before we didn't have it. Now we have it, and I want to continue to make sure that it's spent properly and we can grow as a whole parish, District 2. Thank y'all very much.
Thank you to each of the candidates who have participated in this evening's forum. I'll now hand over the mic to our social action chair. And prior to her ending, we are going to take a 5-minute break and then roll into our state representatives. Thank you as well to each of our audience members for participating and being part of our journey tonight as well. This is Dr. Giselle McKinney Hawkins, and again, my name is Mrs. Nikia Collins Bushnell. Thank you all so much.
I wanted to take this opportunity to thank all the candidates for coming out. And most importantly, I wanted to thank Pastor Garner and the Mount Calvary Baptist Church Social Commission for allowing us to join together and do this. Next up is District 34, and we're going to get ready for them. So we thank you all for coming.
everyone could start to take their places and seats.
Hello? Is this on? Okay. Good evening. Thank you all for joining us again for the second half of our fourth forum. This is the District 34 Forum for State Rep. My name is Giselle McKinney Hawkins. I'm the Social Action Chair for Lake Charles Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. We have President Zelda Fry. She had to step out for another meeting so she's not here, but she sends greetings. We're going to proceed with the next segment. I wanted to make sure I introduce our Mistress of Ceremony, Ms. Nakia Collins Bushnell. She will give you the order in which this forum is going to be conducted. Our timekeepers are Ms. Amanda Johnson and Ms. Dora Kennison Carter. Again, we want to thank the people of Mount Calvary Baptist Church and Reverend Garner and the Social Action Commission for allowing us to collaborate on this effort. Again, thank you and good evening.
Thank you, Dr. McKinney Hawkins. Again, my name is Nakia Collins Bushnell, and we will start with the state representatives. Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated is a 501c7, nonpartisan organization and does not endorse candidates. This forum is for educational purposes only. Today we have with us Mr. Kevin Guidry, Mr. Franklin Lewis Sr., and Mr. Wilford Carter Sr. Each one of you will have a 2-minute opening introduction. We have timekeepers here on both rows on the 3rd row. You'll have a 60-second response to the questions that are asked and a 30-second rebuttal. Each one of these time limits are hard stops. If you have any questions, you can ask those now, or we can move into the opening statements. Does anyone have any questions? We'll start with Mr. Kevin Guidry with your 2-minute opening statement.
Good afternoon, and let me just say to Mount Calvary Church family, thank you for having us here this evening, and to the Deltas, Delta Sigma Theta, and to Pastor Garner. Thank you for having us today. I think that these meetings are so important because you get to learn the people that's in front of you, and you get to learn what they stand for. I've been in the community for all my life. Went to Lake Charles High. I'm going to consider that the best high school in Calcasieu Parish. We may not have any Wildcats in here tonight, though, but that's my school. Left there, went on to LSU. Had a chance to play football there, went on to play with the Denver Broncos. Decided to come back home after my best friend, my wife, Miss Michelle Guidry, that's been since the 6th grade. And she's got a place in heaven. I decided to come back and be a part of my community because it's so important to me on how we change things as to how we see them as individuals. And there's a lot of things here that I would like to do different in District 34. And I want you to give me the opportunity to be that person, to show you what it can look like. Thank you so much.
And just a brief reminder, there is a pause prior to you speaking on the mic. So once you turn your mics on, there's a brief pause. Lewis Sr.
Good evening to Pastor Garner of Mount Calvary, the Deltas. It's truly an honor and a pleasure for me to be here tonight. I grew up here in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I've been in the public eye all my life. I grew up working at Fundell's Funeral Home. I left there and decided to go to mortuary school, where I became licensed as a funeral director and embalmer. I'm still active doing that today. I have my business in Jennings, Louisiana, which is Simeon Lewis Mortuary. I also decided that in 1985 that I would join the Lake Charles Police Department. When I joined the police department, I did 35 years with them. I just retired July 14th of this year. So as I was doing my duty as a police officer, I also worked in community policing for 14 years. So I had a chance and an opportunity to deal with a lot of problems here in our community. I had a chance to answer a lot of your calls and concerns whenever you called the Mayor Action Line or when you called the Community Policing Department up front. I started what was called a Pastors on Patrol program back in 2002 because I felt the need to connect some of our pastors along with the police department and our community. I do believe in bridging the gap, and I think that all of us should work together. So I'm very good at working across the lines with different people. I don't see race, I don't see color, I don't see Democrat, I don't see Republican, I don't see independent, I see people. So I'm Franklin Lewis, I'm number 48 on your ballot, and I'm running for state representative for District 34. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. We'll now go to Mr. Wilford Carter, Sr.
I'd like to thank the Deltas, and I'd like to thank Mount Calvary. I'm running for re-election, okay? I have been fortunate to serve you the past 4 years as your state representative. And while there, one of the first things I've done, because that's the reason I ran, because I wanted a family court judge. You know, we have 3 family court judges. When I got elected, none of them were black. I think that's a unfortunate thing. Also, we got that done. Cynthia Gear is now a family court judge. So you got 1 or 3 judges in district court is black. I think that's important. Diversity is important. I'm all about diversity. So also we got economic problems. Economic Development District was formed. I worked with City Council. They passed a resolution supporting my ideal. And so now we have an economic development district that's going to take some of this vacant property and have an opportunity to contract with FEMA to get some houses built that's wind resistant. So I enjoy working in the legislature. This is sort of something I love to do, and I like to have an opportunity to do it 4 more years. So with your permission, I would do the same thing I've been doing if you give me 4 more years.
Thank you, candidates. As we move into our questions, you'll have a question that is posed to each one of you. You each will respond to the same question with a 60-second hard stop and a 30-second rebuttal after each response has been received. We'll start with Mr. Kevin Guidry. How will you address environmental concerns in Louisiana, including coastal erosion and climate change, while supporting industries like oil and gas and other projects?
I think that's important because that's a huge industry for us here in Calcasieu Parish with all the industries that we have. And I think that it's important that we have environmental protection codes set on those plants to where if they are giving out emissions that they should be fined for. And I think that's important to the communities because you don't want communities. I'll take for an example, Mossville. What happened to Mossville should not have happened. They should have had protections against that community to where that should not have happened. You want to make sure that these plants, these industries are being right as to how they emit stuff into the air that is being, your citizens need to be protected, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I think that's so important because that's a huge industry and they have a lot of dollars that they can make sure that that's done right. And if they're not doing it right, I think that there should be fines or something should be done to them to where they've got to get it right to make sure that they're not harming anybody in those surrounding communities. So I think it's very important that they have guidelines that they have to abide by.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. We'll now go to Mr. Franklin Lewis.
You repeat the question, please?
Once Mr. Guidry takes his seat. Thank you, sir. How will you address environmental concerns in Louisiana, including coastal erosion and climate change, while supporting industries like oil and gas and other projects?
Okay, what I would like to do is make sure that we have guidelines on the books that these industries have to follow. For one thing, we need to make sure that our citizens in Calcasieu Parish are protected from a lot of our plants. As you all know, whenever there's a release at these plants, I think that we need to get like a timely response from these plants to let us know if we need to shelter in place and do whatever we can to make sure that our citizens are safe. As far as our coastal, we need to make sure that our environmentalists can make sure that, if another hurricane should come, that we don't have to worry about flooding coming in from Cameron and affecting us here in Calcasieu Parish. So I think that there's a lot of things as a state representative that we can do to make sure that we ensure that Calcasieu Parish is safe, our residents are safe, and that's what I want to do once I get to Baton Rouge.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. We'll now hear from Mr. Wilford Carter.
We passed a bill this last session dedicating about $100 million to coastal erosion to protect our wetlands. We also passed a bill, and the new thing now is carbon capture. So we passed a bill, and I voted for it. I had some problems with some of the amendments, but what it does is supposed to capture the bad toxic stuff in the atmosphere and put it about 3,000 feet below the ground. Okay, how is that going to work? Got some problem with it because it's going in the ground. We got groundwater in the ground. So I had some concerns about it, but that seemed to be the thing that they're going to. And so I support reducing the carbon footprint as much as we can, because we need good jobs, but we try to protect our citizens as well.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. We'll now start with Mr. Franklin Lewis, Sr. How do you plan to address the state's budget challenges and maintain fiscal responsibility?
Well, the first thing that I think that we need to do as far as the state budget goes is I need to sit down and evaluate what all they have on the table. I think that Louisiana can definitely do better than what it's doing as far as budget crisis go. I think that when we look at our community, we're lacking a lot of funds. We're lacking a lot of things that could help us grow and build and be a more productive society. So once I get to Baton Rouge, I like to sit down, review what our funds we have, and try to allocate those funds in areas that we need them the most. Because again, you know, when you kind of look around, you see that we're lacking a lot of things that District 34 should have. Matter of fact, the state should have as a whole. So I think that, again, once I get down there, I want to make sure that I see what money, what funding is available, and make sure that we use those funds where it will work the most for us.
Thank you. We'll now go to Mr. Carter.
Well, fortunately, we have about a $800 million surplus right now. 8 years ago, we were about $1 billion in debt, but it passed a sales tax. And that sales tax come up for renewal in 2025. And so if we don't renew the tax, we'll take a $450 million loss. So we've been doing pretty good with the budget, and it's always a tough task, make priorities, and remind me of Article, the Third Amendment that we're going to have to vote on to the Constitution that want to preserve, take $25 million, 25% of funds and dedicate it to the unfunded liability. Not a problem with that, but we do have to be fiscally responsible. We will continue to try and keep a surplus budget on hand.
Mr. Guidry.
Yes, I think it's greatly important that you look at your district first and see the needs of your district. And those dollars are available with our state dollars and federal dollars. You trying to find those dollars back to your district. That is the one thing that I think that District 34 has been lacking. There's been too many state and federal dollars that has not trickled down to District 34. Look around at District 34. It's got to look different. When you look south of town, why does things look so much better? It's because of leadership. It's because of people that's there, that's getting the funds that's needed for those areas. Those funds are available, but you've got to put the right people in place to make sure that those funds come back to your community. And that's what we've got to do. We should not be living with blue tarps on our houses in North Lake Charles right now. That should not happen. But we've got to get leadership that's going to know what's important, what's priority for District 34. That is the key word. What is priority for District 34?
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. We'll now start with Mr. You have a rebuttal? Absolutely.
District 34 received over $300 million in my term in office. That overpass, that bridge over there on I-10, that cost $200 million by itself. We got more money as much as any district in this area. So it's just not true that we haven't gotten the money. Well, people from North Lake Charles move out the district. You can't stop people from moving, but we can make these homes, these vacant lots, wind-resistant houses and let people buy. Maybe they'll come back, okay? But District 34 had 50,000 people. I had to give up 5,000 people. Right now we have 44,873 people in the district.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. We'll go back to Mr. Carter. What changes, if any, do you propose to the state's tax policy to balance the budget and promote economic growth?
First of all, we got to figure out what we're going to do about this sales tax. If we don't pass the sales tax in 2025, now understand, we can only do a tax in odd number of years. not an even number of years. So next year, we're not going to be able to do much about the tax in 2024. But in 2025, we have to do something about it. So we will have to make a position. I'm going to probably end up voting for continuing the tax. But if we don't do it, we take a $450 million dive. We got $800 million, but we don't want to use all our monies because the university is going to need help. Healthcare is going to need help. So that's what I plan to do.
Could you repeat the question?
Sure.
Sure.
What changes, if any, do you propose to the state's tax policy to balance the budget and promote economic growth?
One of the things that we've got to do for our communities and for the budget, we've got to create tax incentives for businesses to come to North Lake Charles. I keep saying North Lake Charles because this is what I'm representing, and this is what's most important to me. We have businesses that come to North Lake Charles that may stay open 3-4 months at a time, and they're closed. You never see from them again, they're gone. Why don't we have things in place to where these businesses can thrive and grow and help our communities? It's happening every day, and we've got to create something through the state or through the federal government to make these businesses stay. We've got to give them an incentive to want to do business with us. South of town, people are killing each other to try and find land south of town to put a business. North Lake Charles, look at all this vacant property we have. And what are we doing with it? What are we doing with it? This is the changes that District 34 needs, guys. And we've got to be mindful of it. It's there. Just put the right people in place.
Hold on, Mr. Carter. Mr. Lewis, same question.
Yeah, one of the things that I want to do is I want to encourage more small businesses in District 34. I think that once you get small businesses, you know, that's kind of like the backbone to me. And I really feel like, you know, when people try to open up a small business, there's so many loopholes that they have to try to jump through just to get up and going on their feet. As your state representative, I plan to meet with our local officials, our parish officials, and change that. Because people just need a chance. They need an opportunity. And I think that, you know, once we get that done here in District 34, District 34 can start back thriving the way it used to. I mean, I don't know about you all, but I remember in 1985, District 34 was thriving. When you look at it now and you see the decline that has taken place over the years, it's really sad. And that's why I got in this race, because I need to change that. I need to be that difference maker.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I believe we have a rebuttal from Mr. Wilford Carter.
There's already available tips. There's money being invested along Interstate 10 with the TIPS program. And then they have tax credit. The problem is that we got to attract people to come here. People don't look at who your representative is when they try to locate a business. They look at the medium income level within 10 minutes from the location. They look up traffic flow, okay? And so we need to open up Enterprise Boulevard to 171, get that traffic flow. It's going to help North Lake Charles a lot. We need to develop I-10. That's why I developed the Economic Development District with the help of the City Council. So we got some good things going on.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. We have a rebuttal from Mr. Franklin Lewis.
Yes. What I want to see done, if you go down Highway 14 and 171, those state highways are in turbo shape. We have to work on our infrastructure. I'm looking at people that's coming in from Shreveport, DeRidder, Leesville, those coming in from Texas off of 190. When they get into Lake Charles on 171, there's nothing for them to stop for between Fitzgerald Road and Prairie Lake Road. I think that once we work on the infrastructure, get nice paved state highways, not no blacktops, we could do better.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. We'll now move forward. Louisiana has faced issues with aging infrastructure. How do you plan to prioritize infrastructure investments and address critical needs like roads and bridges? And we'll start with Mr. Guidry.
Thank you. One of the things that I think is key is that you've got to find out what's most priority for us to address and how it's going to affect our community. We look now in this community, you have some roads that 2 cars can't even pass on. That's sad. We've got open ditches. And I know a lot of what I'm saying can be city and parish, but if you're a state representative, don't you go to those individuals and say, what can we do, Mr. Harvey, to fix these roads back here? How much money can I allocate to you to help you? Because I know you may not have it in your budget, But as a elected official, a state elected official, I may have $50 million that I can help you with. What do we need to fix? Those are the conversations we're not having. That's why things look the way they look. People are not communicating. That is the biggest problem we have in District 34. There is no communication with inner government. And that's the problem. Until that gets fixed, we're going to still keep looking at, y'all, there's a road right there off.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. We'll now move to Mr. Lewis. And just a reminder, your rebuttals are going to be after the responses of each candidate.
Thank you. Okay, once again, what I was thinking about doing is, I would like to see from Old Town Road to I-10 be 3 lanes going south, 3 going north. I think that if we could open that up like that, just think of the businesses that we can get to come in and move into our communities. Of course, we have to work on getting our citizens back here in Lake Charles as well. But, you know, when I patrol the streets of Lake Charles, when I looked at how they did Nelson Road, Lake Street, Country Club, McNeese, as soon as they paved those streets and made those roadways as beautiful as they did, all of a sudden you saw businesses popping up everywhere. You saw restaurants popping up everywhere. We could have that here on this side as well. But we have to work on our infrastructure first. So one of my concerns, one of my things is that I'm going to make sure that I get to working on that because I want to attract more businesses to our area. When I started in
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Carter.
District 34 is about to get the largest infrastructure in the state, $2 billion in I-10 overpass. Right now, the overpass is 147 feet high. Everybody's scared to cross it. But when we finish it, it's going to be 76 feet high. It's going to be 8 lanes. That's infrastructure development. Once you do that, that's going to increase traffic flow, and it's going to help I-10 area. You go any place in the state, or go to Texas, Interstate 10 has got businesses on both sides. I want to see the same thing happen in North Lake Charles. But you do that by doing an economic development district, whatever we've gotten approved, and now we got a 1-cent sales tax to be being passed, and every one of them that's been done, Nelson Market, the Morganfield, Salyer, they all had a 1-cent sales tax. So we got the same thing in the economic development district in North Lake Charles.
And we have a rebuttal from Mr. Guidry,
Yes.
30 seconds.
That North Development Board that my opponent talks about, but he doesn't mention much about, is that 1% sales tax. Why are you taxing people that's in poverty right now in North Lake Charles? How can they pay for that? You're going to leave the community and drive 3-4 blocks to buy a carton of milk when you got to get taxed for it in your district? I'm having a hard time with that. And we talk about the I-10 bridge. We only have right now $1.6 billion for that bridge.
Thank
That bridge
you,
is going to
Mr.
cost
Guidry. Mr. Carter, do you have a rebuttal? If so, before
Yes.
standing, please
Yes,
signal
yes.
to me.
Yes.
So Mr. Carter has a rebuttal, and we'll go ahead and go with him.
Every economic development district exists in Calcasieu Parish right now. Morganfield, Nelson Market, where Stein Lumberyard and all that, the development down there. Salyer, Callier, and all that stuff down on Salyer Street. They all got a 1-cent sales tax, baby. We're going to do the 1-cent sales tax. We paying tax right now. You go to Morganfield, you go to Nelson Road, you paying 1 cent extra sales tax for those areas. We're going to do the same thing in North Lake Charles to develop our area.
Thank you for your rebuttal. We'll move on to the next question. We're going to start with Mr. Lewis. Given Louisiana's susceptibility to natural disasters, how do you plan to improve disaster preparedness and response efforts in the state?
Yeah, that's a very easy question for me because I come out of the police department. So basically, we have to just continue doing what we're doing. Whenever we know that a hurricane is coming this way, we have to get with our civil defense, which is Dick Grimion. We always meet with all the city, parish officials to make sure that we do everything possible to prepare for the incoming storm. You as citizens also have to take a responsibility, and you need to evacuate when they say it's time to leave, okay? Because we as police officers who have to stay behind after all these storms, you know, we have to also make sure that you all are safe, the ones who choose to stay in their homes. So basically what I want to do is make sure that number one, everybody evacuates. Number two, I want to make sure that I got feet on the ground the day after the storm, and I have some resources coming in to make sure it take care of our citizens here in Lake Charles. Because that's one thing that I've noticed, like every time a storm happened.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. We'll now go to Mr. Carter with the same question.
The state of Louisiana sent $100 million to Calcasieu Parish and Lake Charles after the storm. They start their own restore programs. So what they did with the money, that's up for your police, jury, and city council. You ask them, okay? But we spend money. Also, we have FEMA. FEMA is trying to build wind-resistant houses. Every time a hurricane comes, all the projects and all the houses are damaged. So we need to build wind-resistant houses. Some houses can withstand 150 miles an hour wind. That's what we're trying to do with Economic Development District, contract with them to build houses in these vacant lots and let people, low-income people, buy those houses, not rent it. So we need to continue funding the parish and the city to make sure they got money to clean out these drainage and these ditches as soon after the storm happens. And we will continue to do that if I'm in the legislature.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. The same question.
I'm going to try and remember, but I think I know the gist of what it is.
I'll repeat it just for clarity. Given Louisiana's susceptibility to natural disasters, how do you plan to improve disaster preparedness and response efforts in the state?
This is simple, guys. Let me say this. We are prone to hurricanes and storms here in Southwest Louisiana. Every time it happens, it's like we're surprised. They happen all the time. Why don't we have things in place? The first thing that I would do when I'm your state representative, I want to have a multi-agency center available somewhere in this community to where we can already be set for a storm when we come in. And the good thing about it, how many of us have to drive south of town to get goods from either Trinity or Glad Tidings? Why can't we have that right here in our backyard? We just need a building to stock it, to store it. Some people here in North Lake Charles don't even have transportation. How can they go south of town? These are the things we're not doing for the people that we represent that's needed. We need that right here in our backyards. And shame on us if we don't have it with all the storms that we've been through. I was the parish president for when Harvey hit. I learned so much about being prepared for when a storm comes. It's unbelievable, guys. It doesn't take a rocket science to get it done, just communicating with people.
Thank you. I believe Mr. Carter has a rebuttal.
I was here during every hurricane. I never left for a hurricane. I was working on my house the day after the hurricane. Listen, we didn't go to Soft Town and get no supplies and water. They had supplies at Washington Marion High School. They had them at Reverend Talbot Church on Moreland Street. They had them all over the place, okay? So that's not a problem. We're going to continue to do that same thing. We live in Hurricane Alley. So we're going to have some disruptions, okay? But we get federal money. FEMA works well with us. We declare national emergency, and we get funds to take care of that. We will continue to do that. But you're going to have some hurricane problems.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Mr. Lewis?
Yes, I just want to say that after Hurricane Laura and Delta, I was here. And I can tell you that it took 3 days to get resources here into Lake Charles. I don't plan to let something like that happen again, okay? I'm going to make sure that I have somebody already on standby, so as soon as we can get them into Lake Charles area, they're going to be in here to help our citizens who are still here in Lake Charles that stay behind like Mr. Carter did.
Thank you. We'll go with Mr. Guidry for this question. How will you address the challenges facing Louisiana's education system, including funding, teachers, recruitment, and improving student outcomes?
I think the most important thing we have here are our teachers. I'm a product of a lady believing in me at a very young age, Miss Jackson, who taught me at T.S. Cooley. I had my appendix taken out at a very young age, and I was going to get put back. She came and stayed with me at the hospital for 3 months to make sure that I didn't have to get put back. Now, that's a teacher. That's somebody that they don't make those anymore. And if they do, we need more of them. The thing that impresses me more so when I talk about that, teachers need to get paid way more than what they get paid. I mean, retirement teachers, they need to be funded because you know what? When you pay teachers good, now your recruiting is much better because people want to be at a job that's going to pay you and have a good retirement. So I'm for every bit of that for raises and supporting teachers' retirement, 100%.
Thank you. We'll go with Mr. Wilford Carter.
Well, I've been endorsed by the Louisiana Federation of Teachers, by the LAE. I voted for teachers' pay raise every chance I got. In fact, the Republicans put $650 million up in the unfunded liability, and I voted for that because that was a good thing to do. But they left the teachers out. So at the last minute, thank God for the Democrats, okay, and a few good Republicans who were able to get a Senate concurrent resolution passed, adding $500 million to the budget, and gave the teacher a supplemental pay of $2,000 and a support staff $1,000. So we're going to continue to do that. And in fact, the bill said that the best board got to put in their budget, so next year it'll be a pay raise. So I'm going to continue to work for teachers. You know, teachers have been closed to my life, and all my kids went right there to Washington, Maryland. I got doctors, I got lawyers, I got CPA, I got all this kind of stuff. And they produce good people. So I will continue to do that if I get reelected.
Thank you. We'll move to Mr. Lewis.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate for teachers. My grandmother was an educator. I have a niece that's an educator now in Denham Springs. And I just think that teachers and law enforcement officers, I'm just going to say first responders, we really never got the money that we need. We're losing too many of our qualified teachers to Texas and other parts of the state. Right now, that's hurting our schools. That's crippling our schools. We need to keep those educators here. And for our retired teachers who, I heard someone say the other day that they have to teach 40 years just to get, a decent retirement. That's ridiculous. So my job is, once I get down to Baton Rouge, I'm going to fight for our teachers and our retired teachers, because both of them play key roles. Our retired teachers, as you know, some of them go back into the schools to try to help some of the younger teachers, educate them, help educate our kids. We need that. We need that support.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Guidry has a rebuttal.
I think the best recruiting tool for our teachers is pay. As simple as that. I wouldn't want to go to a job that's not going to pay me equally or even more than what I should be paid. I think pay is so important. And another thing that I want to mention for those educators that's out there, the other day when I was at the Foreman Radar, one of them pulled me to the side and said, Mr. Guidry, we like what you said, but do not refer to us as teachers. We're educators.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. We'll now start with Mr. Carter. What measures will you take to address issues of racial and social equity, including criminal justice disparities and access to healthcare education?
Same thing I've been doing. I support a diversity, okay? And I fight every day to make sure we get our fair representation. Louisiana is made up of 33 and 7% African American, but yet we have one congressman out of 6. We have one Supreme Court justice out of 7, and we have 6 short of a House member and 3 short on the Senate side. When I get back there next year, that's what I'm going to do. The Supreme Court said Louisiana is in violation of Section 2. I'm going to fight to get us in compliance, okay? We're going to make it happen. We're going to get another congressional seat. We're going to get another Supreme Court seat. We're going to get 6 in the House, and we're going to get 3 in the Senate. I'm an expert at that. That's what I do. I'm respecting the legislature of doing reapportionment laws, and I will continue to do it if I'm reelected.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. We'll go to Mr. Lewis with the same question.
Yes. Okay. So every law enforcement agency is supposed to have a policy and procedure manual. When those policy and procedure manuals right now requires us to have so much training dealing with diversity, also dealing with us going out using use of force. So basically, for you to carry a weapon, carry mace, or carry a taser, you have to go through so much training dealing with use of force. Once you get that training, then you are held a lot reliable for whatever you do when you get out there on the street. A lot of times that's why, the city step back if an officer get out there and do something that's beyond what they were trained to do. So with me as your state representative, I know the police chief, I know all our sheriff candidates that's running. I want to make sure that all of them are held accountable for whatever takes place on the streets.
Mr. Guidry?
Yes, one of the key things that I think should happen among law enforcement and citizens is communication. And I think that every law enforcement should have some kind of diversity and racial relations training. because there are different environments that you're going to go into. You may go into an environment that maybe someone doesn't look like you. So the communication gap may be a little bit different. I think they need to be trained to know how to approach those situations and not have something come out of it that's going to be really bad. Also, mental illness is another thing that I think that everybody should look at. That was an incident that happened sometime back up in Shreveport. A young man was shot 27 times, but the officer did not know that he was mentally impaired. We've got to make sure that we know about those kind of things or have somebody trained to know how to assist in that thing. So communicating and putting the right people in our communities, because that is the biggest problem I think we have. Sometimes because someone don't look like us and talk like us, we get defensive. And we've got to find a way to bridge that gap so that everybody can be safe. That's the key thing. Everybody just want to wake up the next day.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. We have a rebuttal from Mr. Lewis.
Yes, I just want to add, community policing is very important, okay? When you have community policing, you have officers that are assigned to a certain area of the city. Those officers are very familiar with everybody that's in that community. That stops a lot of your violence against race. It's because we know the people there. If somebody is dealing with mental illness, we know that. So whenever we get called to a certain situation, that officer that works in community policing, that works in that particular district, knows how to go there and handle it.
Thank you, Mr. Carter.
So I'm going to make it clear. I work with everybody, okay? I'm a lawyer. I have a death claim case right now I'm handling. I had one before, okay? So a police use of force case. So I work with everybody. My clients are white, black, Latino, everything. So don't be fooled by people suggesting that I don't work with everybody. I work with everybody in the legislature, but I have my strong opinions. I'm a strong Democrat. I'm concerned about Trump Republicans trying to take our democracy from us. I'm not going to ever agree with those folks.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. We'll start with Mr. Lewis with this question. What is your stance on gun control measures, and how do you plan to balance Second Amendment rights with the need for public safety?
Yeah, I think when it comes down to gun violence, we need to make sure those people who decide to carry a weapon be trained. That's number one. The gun is not dangerous, it's the people carrying a weapon that's dangerous. So I think that, for one thing, we need to make sure that there's laws on the books saying that if you're going to carry, you got to go to a concealed carry class and get educated on how to carry that weapon. Because at the end of the day, when you got somebody out here that's carrying a weapon or whatever the case might be, it's bad. Right now, here in Lake Charles, we deal with a lot of stolen guns. People are leaving guns in their vehicles and so on and so forth. Unlocked, these teenagers are going to take these weapons and they're going out and committing felony crimes. So we need to make sure that we tighten the law on owning a gun. Number one, we need to make sure that we get some type of background checks on people who are applying to carry a weapon, because I think that's a lot of times where we fall into problems.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Mr. Guidry, same question.
I agree. And I think that everyone should have the right to carry a firearm, because you've got to protect yourself and your family and your loved ones. But the problem that I have is that you got to make sure that it's permitted. And there's a lot of guns around town that's running around that's not permitted, that people have. And that's where the danger comes in at. And the biggest problem I have is individuals getting automatic weapons. Who needs an automatic weapon? This is what we use for military purposes. Those are the things that I think that must be stopped, or have a special permit if you want to carry something such as an automatic weapon. And those are the things that I will fight for, to make sure that people in our communities are safe, because I think that you have the right to protect yourself as a human being.
Thank you. Mr. Carter.
That's one of the votes I made contrary to most of the Black Caucus members in the legislature and the Democratic Party and the governor. Everybody got a gun, wants a gun, got a gun. These people that shooting up people, they don't have no permit. They didn't go get no concealed weapon permit. They just got a gun and pointed at somebody and shot them, okay? I believe in the right to bear arms, okay? So if you got a gun, I got to pay a sheriff a shakedown, pay him a fee to carry my gun, and everybody else got a gun. You try to get in an argument with somebody, that person probably got a gun, okay? So I believe in the Second Amendment right, and I believe the right to carry. I have an AR-15. Why? Because everybody else got one. So I got one. When they turn it in, I think you ought to outlaw AR-15. But until they do, I'm going to have mine, okay? So I believe in the Second Amendment, but I believe until we start registering everybody to have a gun, everybody, okay, until we stop the automatic weapons, then you better get you one.
Thank you. This will be our final question before closing, and we're going to start with Mr. Kevin Guidry. Louisiana has been working on criminal justice reform. What role do you believe the state should play in further reform efforts, and how can we balance public safety with the need for criminal justice reform?
Very good question. A lot of times we just lock people up and really don't know why. That's the biggest problem. In 3 months, we're going to let them out, and they're going to commit the same crime. I think educating our people when locked up to know why, first of all, they did what they did. A lot of times it's due to being in certain areas that maybe you're not blessed to have all the amenities that other people have. And people tend to feel like, if I don't have it, I'm going to find somebody who's got it and take it from them. Those are the things that I think we need to be better at. Educating our people when they get locked up, find out why they did what they did, and put them in some kind of program or to rehabilitate them to get back into society, because they are still a part of us. Everybody get locked up is somebody's family member. No matter what they done. Pookie may have shot somebody or armed robbery or whatever. That's somebody's family. So I'm going to say educate them and put them back on the right path so they can come back into society and be a productive citizen.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. We'll now go to Mr. Carter with the same question.
Louisiana incarcerate more people than anywhere in the world, okay? We created 15 new crimes just last session. I voted against every one of them, okay? So we believe in criminalizing, jailing people to reduce crime. Yet we have 3 cities that are the highest top 10 criminal cities in the country: Baton Rouge, Shreveport, and New Orleans, okay? Our problem is we don't try to find out, and I agree with what Mr. Guidry just said about educating ourselves about how criminal justice system works. Well, first thing, I did a study in France. What they do, when you get arrested and go to pen, the first thing they do is find out how you got there. How you got there. You got a problem with not to be able to get a job. You got a problem, something happened to you. Find out why they got there. And then work on the whole time in jail of dealing with that. So when they get out, they have a chance, okay? So we have a problem of jailing too many people and having an outrageous bond. The bonds are outrageous in this state, okay? If a person is pursuing innocent, why they got $200,000, $300,000 bond for non-violent crime? I got a bill every year to deal with that. I fight the DA Association all the time behind it.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Mr. Franklin Lewis.
Yeah, one thing that I've noticed in law enforcement, it's like a revolving door, basically. Once someone get arrested, you know, they'll go in jail, do their little time. Once they get back out on the street, because of the fact that, you know, there's no rehabilitation there, you end up finding those people coming back through the system once again. So I think that, you know, we need to get with our local people and try to figure out a way how we can educate these young men and women that are locked up in the jail system, so that once they get out, they don't have to return to the life that brought them in there. A lot of times, as you know, it all depends on who we hang with. If you hang with the wrong crowd, then you're going to find yourself back where you are. But I think that our young people need to have some type of encouragement, you know, to let them know that there is a better life instead of a life of crime. I think that's very important. I used to talk to them all the time whenever I had to take them down to the parish jail.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. We'll now move to our closing statements, where each candidate will have a 2-minute response. We're going to start with Mr. Wilford Carter.
Thank you very much for having me. If you like what I've done the last 4 years, I'm going to do the same thing. Don't blame me for people not paying their taxes and losing their property, or because they can find a house outside the city, a low-income house, they can get a loan from HUD till they leave the city. Don't blame, I didn't build Lake Caroline. They left North Lake Charles and moved to Lake Caroline. I want to bring people back here. When I was on the city council, there were 72,000 people in Lake Charles. Lake Charles got about 76,000, 78,000 people right now. One reason is because of economic development, people leaving, want to go other places. So I want to build these vacant lots with homes to attract people back, and I will continue to do that. I heard something this afternoon when I was knocking on doors. Somebody said, I call a representative a racist. I've never, in 47 years in public life, I never called a person a racist, okay? That's a personal thing that people that deal with people need to deal with, okay? What I do say, I'm against Trump Republicans, so their position is different from mine. They're against everything I'm for. And so I do fight them on that. I'm stern about that, okay? And I will continue to do so. I will represent you. The most important thing I can do for you is be a voice for you in Baton Rouge. And one thing about Wilbur Carter, you're going to hear from me in Baton Rouge. I'm going to talk up. I'm going to go to the mic and speak up for you. Those people that serve in public life, they're not open their mouth. That's not me. I've been doing me since 1976 when I got elected to the city council. I was the first black president of the city council. I graduated from McNeese, okay, second in accounting. I graduated from Southern University, I passed the bar exam the first time. So I'll continue to work for you and serve you. It doesn't have to be a lawyer being in the legislature, but it helps. It doesn't have to be a successful businessman, but it helps. And if you want somebody going to speak up and know what's going on, the process, I'm the number 3 person out of 105. Out of 105 House members, I got the third amount of years in seniority. So I'll be ranked 3rd in 105. Send me back there and take advantage of this leadership and this knowledge and experience while we can. Thank you very much. My number is number 46, by the way.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Number 46, Mr. Franklin Lewis.
Thank you. I'm Franklin Lewis, number 48 on your ballot. The reason why I decided to run for this seat is because I want to be a voice for you all. I want to come back here and have town hall meetings with you, the citizens. I want to bring it to you and let you be educated on what the bills are that we are facing down in Baton Rouge. You know, I think as a state representative, I'm there representing you all. So I think that, you know, as taxpayers, you should have the right to tell me what bills you want me to support, what bills you don't want me to support. So all I want to do is I want to just go down there and make a difference. I want to come back, get people back into North Lake Charles. When I started in law enforcement in '85, North Lake Charles was one of the worstest areas of town to live in. I can truly stand here today and tell you through the efforts of community policing, me working this area, North Lake Charles is now the safest area in town to live. Okay? So with that being said, I'm just saying that, you know, I want to bring my same talents to Baton Rouge and work on getting our community back where it needs to be. When I ride around North Lake Charles, it's like, again, it's heartbreaking for me to see everything that we've lost back here. I know my opponent always say if I want to be a mayor or a city council run for those seats, I'm not running for any of those seats. I'm running for state representative. But when I come back here, I want to make sure that I get with our local and parish officials so that we can have a roundtable discussion. I want to make sure that when I get money sent back to this district, I don't have to stand before you and tell you to talk to the mayor or talk to whoever. I'm going to be able to tell you that, okay, I got this money, this is where it's going to be distributed to, and this is where I want it to be for our community. So I think that's what a state representative need to do. He needs to be accountable for his position, and he needs to make sure that when he gets this money, that it's being used in the places where it's needed most. I'm number 48 on your ballot, so I appreciate your vote.
Thank you, Mr. Franklin Lewis. Number 48, Mr. Kevin Guidry.
First of all, again, I would like to thank Mount Calvary and Delta Sigma Theta for putting this on, because I think that it's so important that you educate your citizens on making the right decision when put forth when you walk into that booth. And let me just say this, a lot of you know that this has been a tumultuous campaign for the three of us. But the one thing that I find in all that I do is that you've got to find good in it. People can talk about you, they can say things about you, and you know, sitting there, you know the truth about what it is. But I guess that's some kind of tactic that people have to use to make themselves look better or different than what you are. I've been this person that I'm standing before you for 58 years. I'm not going to change. I'm not going to change. I am a Democrat. I am black. And I want you to know that. I've been called everything but a child of God. But I'm still standing here before you to tell you what my vision is for District 34. And it's to bring people together. The biggest problem in District 34 that we have is communication. That's why we have the struggles we have. Our Southwest delegation Never been mentioned not one time tonight. You guys got a flyer in the mail today with all the wonderful things that was on it. Somebody said they did them all. Let me stand before you and tell you who helped in getting that done. Was the Southwest delegation. Don't be fooled. Don't be tricked. Understand, do your homework, and know what's been put out there so that you can know to make the right and informative vote on who you think is best for you. Because that's what it's all about. People can play on words sometimes to make you think something else as to what it really is. I'm going to be a we person. I'm not going to be an I person. We will work together, District 34, and make it better and make it brighter and give people here a chance to feel like they got something, that they can feel good about getting up every day. It's time for us to stop struggling by people not telling us the truth about what they get.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry. Would you give us your ballot number?
Thank you. My number is number 47.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry.
Thank you so
Number
much. And again,
47.
may
Thank you,
God
Mr.
bless you
Guidry.
all. Thank you all.
Thank you all for joining our forum this evening. We appreciate your attendance and your participation. Thank you to Mount Calvary as well. And I do know that they wanted to have some closing remarks, so if we could give them just a moment to come down.
Good evening, everyone. I'm rushing down. I forgot my little speech that I wrote out. So I'm Chantal Landry. I'm the new elected president of Social Justice Commission, and we welcome you here tonight. We thank you for coming out, supporting this event, and taking advantage of this voter education opportunity. We are so happy that Delta reached out to us to put this event on, and these are the type of things that we want to do to go out and reach further into our community. Social Justice Commission was started out of our pastor's urging to speak to the events after Trayvon Martin's death. And from there, we have grown to address all the things that affect your life, from health to finances to things like this, voting. I'm sorry, I'm out of breath. So we thank you. Any members, our members of Social Justice, please stand up. We are a team. This is our president that stepped down. I have big shoes to fill, and I thank her for her support and our team. Again, thank you all for coming tonight.
Thank you so much, everyone. That will end our candidates forum for the evening.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I wish I could vote in this one, but I can't. Let me get this stuff.